Well, welcome everyone to the Capitol Snapshot. I'm Bill Collisted with the Iowa Developmental Disability Council, and I'm joined by Amy Campbell, our eyes and ears at the Capitol. Good to see you, Amy.
Good to see you.
Well, Amy, I'm going to kind of start at the state level. We're really excited about the information that's coming out of the House budgets for Iowans with disabilities and those who support them. We did receive some news this week from the Health and Human Service Budget Subcommittee, and there seems to be some dollars there going towards some of the priorities that the Iowa Developmental Disability Council has been supporting. They're looking to increase HCBS provider rates that would go directly to direct support staff, and that's to the tune of $14.6 million. An additional $7.4 million were used to address the waiting list and to remove 250 people off the HCBS ID waiting list. Still an opportunity to work there because we do know there are over 17,000 Iowans on the waiting list, but that is a big step forward. We're happy about that. And then there's also $4 million to increase and expand rural access to home health care. We know how difficult services are to be reached out in rural areas, but also to see an increase there to kind of support people that are providing those services. And then there's also $3 million to address also staff raises in the intermediate care facilities, which often are out in the community, an opportunity there. So those are really a step forward and a positive mark that they're putting that money into the budget in that subcommittee. I know that bill is, I think, 2578, if you want to follow that on infoNET. But if I'm adding that up correctly, that's about $25 million. And Amy, that match, if I'm correct, is a 1-to-2 match from the federal government. And that could be somewhere around 75 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a great amount of money. I don't think this is my 31st legislative session, and I don't remember having there be that much in a budget to help address home and community-based services.
That's great. Great. People can choose to live and play in the area of their choice, and that's exactly aligns with our priorities as the DD Council. So what are you hearing on the federal level?
That's really interesting because I don't think I've ever also heard of a year where we've actually had some of the same issues coming on the federal level. Last year, President Joe Biden had put together a plan that he called the Build Back Better plan. And some people might have heard about that in the news. It was quite a lot of money, $2.2 trillion. But included in that were some really significant increases for home and community-based services too. So that included $150 million for home and community-based services. So more people with disabilities could get the care they want and need in the community and at home. And there was also aligned with what you talked about with the increases for providers, $1 billion that would go to helping direct care workers get the training they need, educational opportunities, but also some wage and benefit increases. So they're making more than what somebody at a Target or somewhere else in the community can make, equal to or more, because we know that's been really a tough time in keeping those workers. And I know we've had several people talk about the challenges they have had with keeping the same person helping in their homes. So, and that's obviously something really important to individuals with disabilities. But I also think there's two other ones that are really great. One is they're looking at $450 million more for the Money Follows the Person program. So I know that's something that Iowa's done pretty well.
Yeah, Amy, just last week, Brooke and I went out to Washington, D.C. to go to the a policy seminar out there, and we actually heard that there is a lot of support for that money going into states that currently aren't providing that service, but also maybe increasing states that are. And they lifted up in that presentation Iowa as an example of one where it's really went well. So it was good to sit there in that meeting and to hear some positive things about Iowa, but also to hear that some more money was coming that way. So that's great.
That is really good. The other thing that I wanted to point out on the federal side is that plan had included $270 million for integrated employment opportunities. And I know that's been a huge focus of the DD Council here, is looking for more opportunities for people to be in the workforce, disabilities. And, particularly, looking at competitive wages, making sure they're paid well, and making sure that there are those opportunities throughout the state, even in those rural areas where you may not have a lot of employers, but to find those opportunities in those places.
Employment's so essential to integration into your community and purposeful living, and then to be able to get to, when you're working, you get to do a lot more things that you would choose to do. So that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we know that Iowa's got super low unemployment rate right now, and we still have a big worker shortage. So I know that's just a focus overall of the state. Certainly our legislature has been trying to talk about that.
Well, great. That kind of lends maybe to a way to kind of wrap up. One of the things that we really wanted to point out to people is this is the great opportunity to make sure your voice is heard, to advocate, let your legislator know what your priorities are. They could be the same priorities as the Iowa DD Council. It could be the direct support staff shortage. That's a significant thing. It could be accessibility in Iowa, and it could also be the waiting list. But there might be other things that are very concerning to you. Some of those rural areas or services in that area, healthcare, it could be the workforce. So just to plug our infoNET information, Amy, you track all of the bills that are on there, but that's also a great resource to find out who your senator is or who your representative is. And you can find the link to email them right from that site. And just to kind of end on a really positive story, last week we shared some information in the newsletter. Hugh Kelly, one of our esteemed council members, followed that link to his legislator, somebody he had already built a relationship with, and he shared the information from our newsletter in an email. And that representative got back to him and said, thank you very much for the information. I see those as a top priority also, really talking about the direct care force shortage. So Hugh did a wonderful job using our resource, but it's out there for people. You can also go to iowalegis.gov and you can find out information about your senator there as well, just to reach out and say, these are the things that I'm worried about, or these are the dollars that I would like to see spent. Let them know. They're going to be wrapping up soon. Is that correct? The hope?
I would hope so. But, we only have the House budget right now. So I think that's a good opportunity for everybody on there here to know that we really need, if you really want these dollars in the budget, you're probably going to need to push hard on your legislators to make sure it stays in, particularly those senators who we don't know what their budget's going to look like yet. So I know they're supposed to get out on April 19th, but I think it's going to be tough for them to wrap up on time this year. They're just not moving very fast, but that also gives everybody that's listening in an opportunity to really make a difference on this in these final 2 weeks.
Well, I really appreciated your perspective on the federal level too. When Brooke and I were in Washington, D.C., we did set up meetings with our legislators, and we did share what we felt were some of the bigger issues for Iowans that are living with disabilities and their families. And they were really aware of the workforce shortage. They're aware of the waiting list, and they're aware of accessibility issues. But I think it's another great opportunity to advocate, make sure your voice is heard at the state level. A lot of our funding being Medicaid, some of that's at the federal level as well. So it's really important to let them know as well. So use the same message and share away, right?
That's right, Bill. So, well, thanks for everybody. And I really appreciate all of the advocacy everybody's done so far.
Yep, share your voice. All right, well, let's wrap it up, Amy.
All right, bye-bye.